Hello. Welcome all. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Race for Safe. Gonna give you just a minute to join in, tap into this live. You won't be disappointed. It's raining afternoon. We had a rainy night. I love the rain. We need this weather to kind of cool us off. We haven't had no rain in a while, so I'd rather have rain than the cold. So welcome. Join in. How was your Resurrection Sunday? I know mine's blessed me. How many know because he died, we can live, and everything that's dead in our lives, we command it to come alive. We thank God for just being who he was to us and who he is to us, that we may be able to be better and serve him with our whole heart because of the decision he made to give his only son that we may have life eternity. So welcome in. Thank you for joining me for another podcast of Race for Safe, where we run from toxic into safety. Last week I gave you guys a double treat because I had some other things going on. So last week we talked about how testimonies are warning and not permission. And in that, it shares that God places people in your life and in your path for a reason, so that you learn from their, mistakes, and that you don't have to take the long route to get to your destiny, because you listen and not use a person's testimony as a leeway to condone what doesn't align with God, because you know that God would give grace. So that's what we talked about when we talked about testimonies are warnings and not permission. And then following that episode, we also talked about red flags we ignore that keeps us in cycles, So on today, I want to share with you all why we end up in toxic cycles, whether we saw it growing up or whether we fell into it. So today, relax, unwind, and let's dive into how we can break another toxic element off our life so that we can be free and walk into our true destiny that God has already designed for us before we was even born and created in our mother's womb. Because the truth is, some of us had good examples and some of us didn't. And the woman who came from chaos and the woman who came from stability can all end up in toxic patterns, knowingly, unknowingly, willing, and some unwilling, but once we get through this episode, we'll know better, we'll do better, and we'll make a commitment to what? Break this cycle. So let's start here. Some women didn't just experience toxic cycles, toxic environments, just toxic lifestyle. Some were raised in it. Chaos was normal. Mom, dad, cussing, fussing, arguing, fighting, physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, yelling was normal. Disrespect, being called out your name, you seen it and it was normal. Survival mode was normal. So when you grew up, you didn't recognize that those are all signs of toxic and dangerous. You looked at it being a familiar territory, a familiar place, because when you was growing up as a child, you experienced the chaos, the yelling, the disrespect, the neglect, the survival mode, the abuse. So you tap into that familiarity thinking that it's safe, because over the years growing up as a child into adulthood, your nervous system has deemed that to be a safe place. It is something that you're familiar with, that's something that you know how to navigate. Is, this toxic, environment. And you may grow up in a home and you had to be strong early. A lot of people had to cook for other siblings. They had to babysit if they came from a one-person household or a two-parent household where both parents was constantly working. Some women, as well as men, had to grow up early and be the parent of the house while their real parents was working. So that's how we get into these toxic cycles and not knowing how we end up there. Why do we end up in toxic cycles? One, because we may have grew up in it, or two, because we wanted to explore and we just fell into it. So in life, in homes, you had to be strong early. You had to learn how to cook. You had to babysit. Your needs are being heard. Your voice was neglected, because how many times have we heard that, oh, you a child, you need to stay in a child place, or what I said goes from our parents, and then some may have seen love that was conditional, to their father to their mother, and their mother to their father. Mother loved their father if he was paying all the bills, or he was giving her something materialistic, versus, the man, same way. He felt like, I took care of all the bills, so now you got to give me something physical. So you get into this toxic cycle of thinking that these type of relationships, conditional, transactional relationships that's toxic, are safe, and that's the way that you're supposed to operate, but it's not so. And now as an adult, you tend to tolerate environments that drain you, overextend yourself to people, stay too long in relationships that don't serve you any purpose, and ignore red flags such as verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, because you grew up in a toxic environment, or you grew up in an environment that wasn't toxic, so you wanted to explore because you felt like you was missing something. But because your nervous system was trained in the toxic survival mode and not safety, when you get to be an adult, you deem that these things are, normal. Hey, Uncle Red, love you. Thank you for tapping in. I hold my podcast every Tuesday at 5. I try to be on time. Podcast where we run from Race for Safe, where we run from toxic to safety, unlearning patterns taught to us by families or just in life in general, and unlearning what we was taught that wasn't right. And on today, I'm just talking about why we end up in toxic cycles, and how to get out of them, how we navigate them so that we can heal, be whole, and get out of them. And like I was just going over, some of us grew up in the environment that was toxic, and when we grew up to be adults, we thought that that was, normal. But as we grow and we continue to gain our own knowledge, we see that sometimes everything that we were taught was not always right. So what do? We have to learn what we didn't learn and step into the unknown and try something different, because what we grew up in or what we learned wasn't always what was right. Not that all of it was wrong, but some of it wasn't right. And when you grow up in toxic environments without being taught what is healthy and the way that life should be, we can't expect someone to choose safety if they was raised in survival mode. They seen mama and daddy, or just mama or just daddy, the one parent household, robbing Peter to pay Paul, always working, always hustling and stuff. People think just because they have a hustle, that they are entrepreneur. You're not an entrepreneur if you're not able to manage that money that's coming in, because a hustler is a person who gets the money, and as fast as they get it, it leaves, and a lot of people like say, oh, I'm a go-getter. Yes, but how do you make your money make money for you? And that is something that many of us was never taught in household financial literacy, and how to not just be a hustler, but take that money that we have gained from hustling and invest it in different avenues to where it can create more money for us. A lot of us don't want to invest money in anything because we think somebody trying to pull the wool over our eye, trying to, rob us, of our hard-earned money. But how many know that CDs are good, high interest savings is good, real estate investment, flipping houses, stocks, all of those are good avenues. Even life insurance, if you use it right, are good avenues to generate in multiple streams of income when you're hustling. You don't want to always be hustling your life. Well, hey, I need $100 for a bill, so yeah, I know how to do how I'm gonna go charge this person $100 so that I can meet that need. No, you're still staying in survival mode when you do things like that. So you can't sit and operate in safety when you don't know what safety is. And let's talk about a person who, I have my notes with me, but let's talk about a person who didn't grow up in the toxic environment, but they ended up in it anyways. They landed in it because they wanted to explore, or they thought somebody was safe and end up showing a different side once they was with a person for so long. So some women, may have saw healthy love, were taught right from wrong, had structure, stability, guidance, a 2-parent household, didn't have to worry about lights, water, food, cell phone bills, whatever the case may be, had the latest fashion, but still ended up in a toxic cycle. And why is this? Because exposure is not the same as healing. A woman grows up seeing respect, consistency, stability, but somewhere along the way experiences rejection, being overlooked, not feeling chosen, comparison, emotional wounds no one saw. Now as an adult, this woman chooses validation. No one told me that I was pretty, so I got to hear that I'm pretty from others, or I think I need to change my appearance. How many celebrities that you seen that nothing was wrong with them, and they go get their body done and their face done and all this, physical, work done, instead of just being uniquely different, being who God created them to be. The Lord say we're fearfully and wonderfully made, handcrafted by Him. So why do we need to go do all this stuff to our bodies? We don't, And then, as an adult, now you might tolerate inconsistency. You let a person bread crumb you, relationships. Oh, 1 minute they got time for you, and the next minute they don't got time for you. 1 minute they want to take you on a date, the next minute they taking somebody else on a date because that's the new hot thing. So then you trying to compare yourself to the next person and why he chose her this weekend and not you, and it ain't really got nothing to do with that. And then he ghosts you for 2 weekends, and then he back, and you allow it. Why? Because these are emotions and feelings that was neglected. And then you overgive, you people please to feel valued, and then you neglect your own needs. Always available and saying yes. This is for the women that like to be available at every dial, at every text, at every hey. And not just in relationships as boyfriend, girlfriend, spouses, mates, or whatever like that. In relationships, you choose to be a people pleaser because you feel like you missed something. Not because you don't know better, because you had it growing up. You had respect, consistency, stability, but maybe at school your friends were rejecting you, or you was rejected by people that you thought you should have fit in with, or being overlooked, and now you trying to change yourself. I know when you get into middle school and high school, so much peer pressure, and that's when all of these things start. When you're in your preteens and your teens, going into your early adulthood, and then you lose yourself, and then you go to looking for love in all the wrong places. And when you go to looking for love in all the wrong places, you get everything but love. Because love don't hurt. And love is not what it says, it's what it does. If a person love you, you ain't gonna have to tell them to show up. You ain't gonna have to tell them, oh, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. If you in the hospital and they love you, they coming. You ain't even got to tell them, they coming. Before you even finish the sentence, they on their way. If a person had a bad day or failed the test, oh, I got some flowers, or hey, come on, let me take you out to lunch. That's love. Lending an ear, just to vent, and then at the end of it, y'all praying through things together. Thank the Lord for that, But a woman who looks for all of these things, validation, accepts inconsistency, overgives, and people please to feel valued, and ignores her own needs healing. Something is missing. You can be taught healthy and still be drawn to what's unhealthy if something in you is unhealed. And that's how we attract toxic cycles. That's how we get into cycles of abuse, cycles of neglect, of neglecting our self-love and our self-care for ourselves, And here's the truth. Whether you came from a toxic environment, household, or you had a good example, unhealed wounds will still lead you into toxic cycles. Because at the root of those, it's not just what you saw, it's about what you felt, what you believed about yourself, what you learned to accept, and what your heart is still trying to fix. If you felt sad, you're going to accept a person that talks down to you. You're going to accept a person who call you out your name and not by your name. Like, no. God named me Brittany. Call me Brittany. Don't call me nothing else. That's who God called me to be. And whatever you believe about yourself, you're going to believe. If you believe you ain't nothing, or you're not beautiful, or you're not smart, then that's what you're going to put up with. You got to look in the mirror and tell yourself, I am beautiful. I love me. I am smart. I am the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens on the inside of me. I am fearfully and wonderfully made, a daughter of a king. You have to decree and declare things over yourself, positive things. Every time somebody says you're not something, you say the opposite, because that's what the enemy does in our spiritual walk, with our walk with Christ. He tell you not to hear, but God call you above only and not beneath. Come behind a no good thing. No good thing will he withhold from you, because you walk uprightly before him. So why are you going to let somebody talk down on you and make you believe that you're less than who God says you are? Rise up, warrior. Come on, women. Get up. Why you keep on allowing yourself to let this man call you out your name, or let your mate You know, I know my podcast is for women, but this can go for men as well. Don't let a woman call you all types of names and stupid and dumb and you ain't gonna never be nothing. You just like your daddy. And don't rise up and combat it with the word of God. I'm of a royal priesthood. Who you think? Chosen. Handpicked. You can't let people put their perspective of what they think, their point of views of what they think you should be and how they feel about you on you. That's for them to deal with. Me and my sister, we were just talking this week and last week about hair and the labels that they have in the corporate community when African American women decide that they want to wear their hair free. If we like our natural kinky curly, what's the problem? Just because you envision me with the long hair, the sew in, the braids. I love India Arie song because what she said, I'm not my hair. Why does it matter of what hairstyle I have? It doesn't define who I am. It doesn't. That's not going to determine if I'm the fit one for the job, if I can get the job done. Moving right along, because that ain't what this podcast is about today. But be uniquely you. Love you. Love you. You have to. And we don't repeat just what we're taught. We repeat what we haven't healed. What in you is not healed that you're repeating? Women seen a single mom do it all. So in this head of yours, you get this narrative that when you get an adult, I'm gonna be an independent woman. We love, you know, my generation growing up. INDEPENDENT. Do you know it? Got our own house, got our own car. That's good. Work hard, 2 jobs. Yeah, okay. But what if God sent you a kingdom spouse to take the load off? And you push him away because what my mama did about herself, I can do it too. I ain't got to depend on no man. Wrong mindset. Wrong mindset. You keep, well, I don't know why the Lord won't send me my husband. I don't know why the Lord won't send me my wife. Because you don't want a wife that's going to hold you accountable, and you don't want a husband that's going to put you in your soft girl era, even though that's what you're screaming. I want to be in my soft girl era. Hi. And you want to be in control. Heal those wounds. Yeah, the Lord may have had that journey for your mom, your dad, but that's not your journey. Unforeseen circumstances occurred, and they had to do what was best, which was having a one-person household. But why do you have to bring that toxic mindset into your life? Let's talk about it. You only doing it because somebody neglected you, somebody rejected you. You got one bad relationship, and now you feel like you can't trust nobody. Deal with those wounds. Deal with the unforgiveness. When you forgive, it's for you, not for the others. You bring peace back. You'll restore your joy. When you forgive the wrongs that others did to you, sometimes it's out of their own ignorance. Sometimes they don't even understand why they did what they did to you. And you letting all these wounds just keep on piling up. You can't let other people's wounds scar you and place wounds in you and land you in toxic cycles. Because mama and daddy robbed Peter to pay Paul, that don't mean that when you become an adult, that give you a green light to live paycheck to paycheck. That's not the way God wants us to do. We have to learn how to steward our finances, learn how to budget. We have to learn how to invest the way that God has ordained for us to do. And if we don't know how to do that, then we need to go find the proper resources, avenues, people to help us. Everything we need is in the Bible. It'll show us. And I tell you guys on this podcast, I'm always going to share about how I got out of the cycle, and it's Jesus Christ. Simple. Prayer, fasting, reading of the word, gaining understanding of the word that I was reading. For every situation that I was in or that occurred and I was trying to find a way out, I looked for that in the word of God. I prayed that in prayer, and God gave me wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and strategy, an exit plan. He led and guided me and ordered my steps. So I want to break this down clearly for you all. Familiarity feels safe even when it's not. And pain can feel normal. Being chosen can feel more important than being safe. For everybody that want to be seen. We chase what we didn't get. So if you didn't get love, you chase it. If you felt like you never got showered enough with gifts, of being able to receive gifts, you attract people who love bomb. And those are consistent traits of narcissists. Oh, well, he did this, he did that, he did this. So that's who you end up with, because you never receive gifts, and we tolerate what we think we deserve. Some of us have these big old standards up here. I hate to hear it sometimes. Oh, I want, the money, the house, the car, this, that, and the third. And if they ain't got, sitting on this and 26, and if they ain't got $6,000, baby, do you got your own house? Do you got your own car? Are you working? Do you got $6,000? Date in your tax bracket. And if you're going to date outside your tax bracket, be comfortable in learning from that person and growing, because you got to grow. It's okay to be down here and dating somebody up here, but learn so that you can get here, because I'm pretty sure by the time you get here, they're going to be moved up a little bit. And you don't want to sit and be taught and learn nothing, because you got, I don't need no man for this. I don't need no man for that. I can do this by myself. I got this. I'm mama, I'm daddy. No, wrong narrative. When I was a single mother and I had to raise my 5 children until the Lord sent my husband, I never once said I was mama and daddy. I said, Lord, I only know how to be a mother like you created me to be, and I need you to step in and be the father. That's what I said. I didn't sit and say, oh, I'm the mama and the daddy. Happy Father's Day to me. Happy Mother's Day to me. I disgust it when women say that, because you're not. You're not mama and daddy. You just mama. And daddy may be absent. He may be sometime in, he may be inconsistent, whatever it may be. But you say, Lord, I need you to step in and not just be my father and my husband and the head of me, but Lord, be my children's father. Be the head of them, Lord. Until he sends you your kingdom spouse, until he sends you. He who finds a wife finds a good thing. But God also puts you in a place to where you have to get yourself ready. You always have to look at yourself before God send your mate. When I was seeking God for a husband, I went through a period of no dating, no talking, no conversation, no nothing to men, so that God can heal the inner wounds on the inside of me. Some of you got to be healed, delivered, and set free before you can even move on to the spouse that God has for you. And some of y'all don't want to sit with that. And if you deal with the wound, then you won't carry over toxic patterns and behavior that was learned or that you just fell into because you wanted to explore. You know, awareness without healing would keep you in the same cycle. You could be aware that you have toxic patterns, live in a toxic environment where all you hear is yelling, cussing, fussing, hands being laid and stuff like that. And even though you were aware of the toxic cycles, without healing the root causes, you'll continue to repeat the same cycle. When you gonna get tired? Some of us rob Peter to pay Paul every month. Why? Because I wanted to go out. I wanted to have that chocolate bar. I wanted to hang out with the girls. Maybe if you stop doing that for a little bit and focus on your priorities, then you could have girl dates once a month. You could buy the chocolate bar once a week. I remember when I had to cut everything off and get my priorities in straight, and I was happy that I could buy me a 99-cent ice cream cone from Chuckers. And I said, can you make it a tall one? Can you make it a tall ice cream cone? You know? But that's because I chose to get to the root. What's the root cause of the wound? And what steps do I need to take to heal the wound? Uproot it from the roots. Leaving no residue so that I can move forward in life, move forward into safety, move forward into purpose, move forward into destiny. One of the things I love to say is that I live life on purpose, for a purpose, with purpose. It has to be a purpose because God gave each and every one of us a purpose. And sometimes you can't find that purpose when you're consumed by wounds. And when you get to a certain age in life, you can no longer hold your guardians responsible for your life as an adult. When you become an adult, you can get therapy, you can get counseling, you can create the life you always wanted for yourself. You design your own life. Yes, we can hold our parents accountable, our guardians accountable, but when we become adults, we're responsible for our lives. We determine the outcome of our lives by our choices and our actions, you know, that we make. Can't be 40, 50 years old still talking about what mama and daddy didn't do. Love them, forgive them, because you're an adult now too. And it's something that you wanted to do or you thought would be better or could have been better, and it just ain't turned out that way or it didn't work out that way. Forgive, release, let it go, so that you could be whole, that you could move forward, and you could walk into safety and wholeness and stop with the toxic pattern, because that's another toxic pattern or characteristic that we be used to. That's just how they is, you know. They don't forgive. They so bitter. They hold grudges. Don't be them. Let it stop with you. Let the anger, the hurt, the abuse, the neglect end with you. The forgiveness to start with you. The healing to start with you, so that you can break free from toxic, from what is not good and what serves no purpose, and walk into purpose, to safety, to your divine destiny. to thriving. From survival to thriving. So, this is where you shift, you know, from awareness to action. Be honest about your patterns. Heal the part of you that feel unworthy, undeserving. Let go of what feels familiar. What feels familiar but unhealthy. Choose peace even when it feels uncomfortable. Set boundaries even when it's hard. And don't abandon yourself to keep others. If you have to neglect you at the cost or expense of something or someone, let it go. It ain't for you. It's not for you. Safe may feel unfamiliar, but unfamiliar doesn't mean it's wrong. Being able to have quietness or calmness instead of chaos, it's okay. Being able to be heard and understood is okay versus being neglected and not heard and not seen. It's okay. And tell your nervous system that it's okay. So, whether you grew up in a toxic environment or had a good experience, an example, growing up, if you find yourself in cycles that hurt you, you are not broken. They are just wounds that needs to be healed. And in order to heal those wounds, we have to identify the toxic patterns, the toxic cycles. And Race for Safe is not just about running from toxic situations. It's about healing what keeps pulling you back into them. A cycle is something that's the same thing over and over and over that constantly repeats itself. Some people are in and out of jail. Some people are in and out of job. You know, they got about 30 W-2s at the end of the year. Can't keep a job. Some people been in a relationship for 10 years with a person and know it's not gonna work, but just continue to repeat the same cycle. You got to get out. Because when you heal, you don't just know better, you start choosing better. And that's when your life truly begins to change. When you're healed, you don't just know better, you do better. Some people is like, if I knew back then what I knew now, well, let's focus on what you know now and how you can apply it to your life right now so that you can start healing and get out of toxic into safety so that you can thrive. What can you do right now? Because we're not just running from toxic. We're running towards safety, healing, and wholeness. So on today, I challenge you to pick one thing to heal from this week. And start doing it. And anytime it tries to show up in a different way, do better because you now know better. That's all I have for you all today. Think about why I want you all to think about why you ended up in the toxic cycle that you are in, what you need to do to break it, apply it, and return to it no more. When it resurfaces, I want you to think about what you did to break it and set that as a boundary to never go back to it. Whether it's smoking, whether it's drinking, whether it's leaving a abusive relationship, whether it's being determined to stay on a job longer than a week, whether it's not buying fast food this week so that you can have enough gas money or, you know, money for your bills. Do that this week for yourself and trust the result. Start with something small and watch God work and move on your behalf, and you won't even miss it. You will adapt a new normal, a healthy normal, and your nervous system will adapt to what is supposed to be safe and not what's trained or deemed to be safe, even though it was toxic. Until next week at 5, I have enjoyed being your podcast host, Brittany Owens, and thank you for tuning in for a Race for Safe, where we run from toxic into safety. I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a blessed evening. Bye.